He took a shower. I cooked up a big platter of rice with all that was left in the house, and Luann sewed his socks, and we were ready to go. Neal and Alan and I zoomed into New York. We promised to see him in 30 hours in time for New Year's Eve. It was night. We left Alan at Times Square and went back across the tunnel and into New Jersey. Taking turns at the wheel, Neal and I made North Carolina in 10 hours. "Now this is the first time we've been alone and in a position to talk for years," said Neal, and he talked all night. As in a dream, we were zooming back through sleeping Washington and back in the Virginia wilds, crossing the North Carolina daybreak, pulling up at my sister's door at 9 a.m., and all this time, Neal was tremendously excited about everything he saw, everything he talked about, every detail of every moment that transpired. He was out of his mind with real belief. "And of course, now no one can tell us that there is no God. We pass through all forms. You remember, Jack, when I first came to New York and I wanted Hal Chase to teach me about Nietzsche. You see how long ago. Everything is fine. God exists. We know time. Everything, since the Greeks, has been predicated wrong. You can't make it with geometry and geometrical systems of thinking. It's all this." And he wrapped his finger in his fist, and the car hugged the line straight and true. "And not only that, but we both understand that I couldn't have time to explain why I know and you know that God exists. At one point I moaned about life's troubles, about how poor my family was and how much I wanted to help Pauline, who was also poor and had a daughter. Troubles, you see, it's the generalization word for what God exists in. The thing is not to get hung up. My head rings," he cried, clasping his head. He rushed out of the car like Groucho Marx to get cigarettes, that furious ground-hugging walk with the coattails flying, except he had no coattails. "Since Denver, Jack, a lot of things. Oh, the things I've thought and thought. I used to be in reform school all the time. I was a young punk asserting myself, stealing cars, a psychological expression of my position, hinky to show. All my jail problems are pretty straight now. As far as I know, I shall never be in jail again. The rest is not my fault." We passed a little kid who was throwing stones at the cars in the road. "Think of it," said Neal. "One day, he'll put a stone through a man's windshield, and the man will crash and die, all on account of that little kid. You see what I mean? God exists without qualms. As we roll along this way, I'm positive, beyond no doubt, that everything will be taken care of for us. That even you, as you drive, fearful of the wheel — I hated to drive, and I drove carefully — the thing will go along of itself, and you won't go off the road, and I can sleep. Furthermore, we know America, we're at home. I can go anywhere in America and get what I want because it's the same in every corner. I know the people. I know what they do. We give and take and go in the incredibly complicated sweetness zigzagging every side." There was nothing clear about the things he said, but what he meant to say was somehow made pure and clear. He used the word pure a great deal. I had never dreamed Neal would become a mystic. These were the first days of his mysticism, which would lead to strange, ragged W.C. Fields saintliness of his later days. Even my mother listened to him with a curious half ear as we roared back north to New York that same night with the furniture in the back. Now that my mother was in the car, Neal settled down to talking about his work life in San Francisco. He went over every single detail of what a brakeman has to do, demonstrating every time we passed rail yards, and even at one point jumping out of the car to show me how a brakeman makes the high sign for a through train. My mother retired to the back seat and went to sleep.